Hi. As we have said before in previous videos, faith is a verb. It's a do word. You do faith. It's not passive, it's not inactive, but when we put our faith into action, we live the life of faith. Hebrews chapter 11 verse 1 tells us this. Now faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. That's fairly simple and straightforward, although it's very profound. Faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. That means that although you can't see what you're believing for or hope for, you live your life as though you can. Now, let's imagine, for example, that we're in faith for a certain amount of money to do something with that money. Let's say it's to go on a mission. Now, I know that God wants me, for example, to go on mission because that's what He's called me to do. It's part of my calling, and it's part of every Christian's calling, because the Great Commission is to go out into all the world and make disciples. But there's no money. But you know that it's God's will. So what do? Do you wait until the money comes in and then book the mission? Or do you go ahead as though you could see the money in your bank account, as though you could see the money in your hands, and plan the mission? Well, surely if you're living by faith, as we're called to do as Christians, then you don't wait until the money's there. You believe that it will come in because it's God's will, and you live your life as though it was there already. We have to be careful here that we don't get into presumption, that we stay in faith that God really does want us to go on that particular mission, and God is blessing the planning stages of that mission, and that money is beginning to come in, and before you go, you'll have all that you need. But, where do you draw the line? Is it too radical to plan the mission and put provisional holdings on seats on aeroplanes and begin to get a group together and plan the itinerary for what's going to happen when you get there, although there's no money to guarantee that you will be there? Or just wait till the money comes in? Well, I have to tell you that I live my life by faith, and every mission I go on, I don't have the money before I start to plan for it. God has honoured me up until now, and honoured the planning and blessed the mission, and all the provision has come in before the mission has taken place. But it's not always come in at weeks before. Sometimes it's come in the day before. It comes in at the 11th hour, just so that my faith gets stretched to the absolute maximum, that I grow in faith every time a challenge comes. But what do? Do you wait until you have the evidence clear to be seen? Or do you wait believing that what you hope for is already there, although you can't see it? That's what it says in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. Just a couple of pages further on from that, we come into the book of James. The book of James chapter 1 tells us in verse 22, do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves, do what it says. So if God says to me, go to Africa, then I could just say, well, that's great. God is going to put it all together. He's going to plan it. He's going to get me there. Or I can do the planning, work with God in partnership, and see His will being done in my life. Because if I don't, if I'm inactive, if I'm passive, if I'm lethargic and apathetic, if I'm presuming that God is going to do it all, then I'm deceiving myself, according to the Epistle of James. This is a challenge I'm throwing out to you, and it's a challenge I live by every day myself. I'm not asking you to do what I don't do myself, but it's radical. You live for what you believe is there, although you can't see it. You believe the provision for the vision is already made in terms of eternity, although in our time scale of things, it hasn't yet happened. But God, who has been to the end from the beginning, Jesus, who is the Alpha and the Omega, they know if you have heard in your spirit, man, that you have to do something that requires money, it requires action, it requires activity on your part, that God is motivating you by the vision for what will happen when the provision comes. You go ahead and you make the plans. You go ahead believing that what God says for you to do, He will provide for you to do it. Enjoy the faith-filled life. It's dynamic, it's active, it's full of action. It's a life that's constantly changing and challenging you and me. But would you have it any other way? God bless you.